So hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the new P.u.n.k support and trying to determine if this actually changes anything. So a lot of the new support we've been seeing recently, I gotta say it's been pretty like mid support. Like for example, if we were to instead look at the DD support, or not that DD, so we look at DDD, right? And I should knock off one of those Ds to show all the cards, but okay. So before with DD, what do we do with a single Kepler? Well, um, hmm, looking. What we can do here, I guess the only thing we could add to extend off of just single Kepler is we can grab Lamia and then we make out, essentially. So we grab specifically the Dark Contract with the gate, and then we send gate, and then we have these two, and then we could technically make Halcdon, and that's, yeah, that's the best thing we could do. Pre-support. Realistically, if we're thinking about like in terms of ceiling, yeah, this is up there, and there's some Hulk involved plays regardless. So yeah, synchro DD essentially epic. So now with the support of Griffin, this opens up things like tremendously, and it also helps you play through hand traps, just in general, just with all the new support cards existing. And you also have a backup play of just making the DS Machinax to just pass on if you're like under Maxi, for example, right? And then you're completely fine just chilling on this. And I mean, you're not guaranteed to win the game, right? So it's not like broken, but it's still pretty good, right? So that's what DD support looks like. And you have a lot of useful things just in general off of just, well, just these two cards existing, right? Okay, so keeping that in mind, we looked at like P.u.n.k, well, not P.u.n.k. We looked at Memento in a previous video alongside some other archetype. I don't remember what it was, honestly, at this point. But yeah, the support was kind of mid if we compare it to like what DD support is doing. So yeah, not feeling that hype. But all right, let's take a look. So we have two new inclusions right now. We have Rising Scale and we have Jam Fever. So honestly, I think Jam Fever, pretty damn good card. Kind of, but also not really at the same time. So we have to use specifically a P.u.n.k Fusion or Synchro to summon the Jam Fever if we're cheating it out. Otherwise, this is just a generic, I guess, like level 8 guy. And in fact, this is somewhat more useful outside of P.u.n.k than inside of P.u.n.k, because technically, this gives you a new option with like the Horus cards. So before, you would be making Photon Galaxy Lord, I think that was the name of the card. Was it a number monster as well? I'm pretty sure it was also a number monster. Yeah. Number 90 Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. So this is situationally better or worse, but what we can do with this is instead of making this guy, which is just essentially going to be when a monster's activates its effect, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card, negate that monster's effect, and there will be no galaxy card attached to this if we're using it generically. So it's just negate a monster effect, no destroy. And then this one will be with destruction right here. So when another monster's effect is activated and you have a level 3 psychic monster in your graveyard, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that monster. So the little issue here is if you have a psychic monster or not, but this can be resolved by just simply having a ghost ogre. So you would still probably have to be playing a P.u.n.k engine somewhat to really be able to utilize this, I suppose. But yeah, generically, this can be monster negate. Well, somewhat generically, I should say, rather. I mean, getting the psychic into the graveyard, kind of important. But if we are able to do so, this is a little bit better, being a monster negate and a draw, essentially, right? Kind of. So it's generic in the sense that like any deck could technically play it because like P.u.n.k is very generic. Making this with the horse cards, maybe not the best actually, but you know, with the P.u.n.k cards, you know, we can make this pretty easily. And it wouldn't take too much deck space. We could just do this as a small draw engine. So for example, we're going to start with the best card, Emergency Teleport. So we E-Tele for, I guess it's always like Xiamen here. And then we can go Xiamen to grab the Foxy Tune, I suppose, or we can do the effect to grab, would it be Ogre Dance? Add to your hand a punk monster from your deck to your hand except for a level 8 monster. So no, we would do grab, I guess, Foxy Tune, probably. So we don't even use Rising Scale for this, yeah? Okay. We don't need Rising Scale. So we would go Foxy Tune to special summon Sharakusai, and then we would fusion summon the Rising Carp. Rising Carp would then summon probably Deer Note, and then I guess Wagon's pretty solid. We could do Wagon, right? And then we can grab the field spell, or not. We could also just, instead of grabbing Wagon, we can just grab Madame Spider to grab a trap. And then we can make Jam Dragon Drive to add a copy of Ghost Ogre. And then we can turn this into a Jam Fever. If we are resolving the Deer Note instead of bringing back the Sharakusai, we could also bring back a copy of, in this case it would be Foxy Tune. And then we could make the rank 8 so we can get the draw and the negate. It's kind of like dependent on what you want exactly, but you know, there's some small variation that you can like mess around with for what might be optimal for your deck. But you know, off of the E-Tele, at this point we have just a monster negate plus either, in this case it will be a pop or a monster negate. It's generally safer to go for this, but if your deck already has enough monster negates, I think Nashuari Surprise is going to be a little bit better. Depending on like the size of your punk package, we can go into like Wagon and stuff. But for the most part here, it'll be draw 1, Ghost Ogre in hand, back row with the Nashuari Surprise, and Jam Fever, all for just E-Tele and discarding a card in hand for Foxy Tune, which you will later kind of like replenish with the draw off of the Jam Fever. And this will also lower your life points a little bit, which could be risky in some cases, but it's probably fine in most cases, I would imagine. So yeah, pretty good overall. And yeah, we're probably chilling here. And no normal summon was used, so we could then accompany this with just any kind of combo really, and we're insulated from nib because we have this bad boy now. So could we have gotten nibbed in the punk stuff before we got through all of our punk cards? Yeah, I guess, but you know, now our opponent has to nib at this point, so there are benefits to this. But alright, if we're playing Punk Pier now, what exactly did this change? Well, I'll tell you right now, in Punk Pier, yeah, we're not playing around nib now, because yeah, we've already used our punk effects by the time we like get to this guy, so that doesn't help. And then the Rising Scale. Well, when can we add Rising Scale? Well, we have Xiamen, which adds any punk monster from your deck to your hand except for itself. And then this cannot summon level 8 monsters, so that doesn't work. This can only add level 3 psychic monsters. This is a level 8, so not great. And do we have a way to send to the graveyard now? This reborns any punk monsters, so this could technically reborn Rising Scale, I guess. So if we want access to Rising Scale, we have to add it with Xiamen. And where does this banish from? Hand or graveyard? So I believe the combo line, if we want to use just Rising Scale, like we would have to do Xiamen adds Rising Scale, link off the Xiamen with Almirage, then we can Rising Scale to banish the Xiamen, summoning Sharakusai, which is completely pointless because we were going to be able to do this anyways. I guess we don't have to discard for Foxy Tune, which is something. Is it that worth to do that? It costs us an extra deck slot. I don't know, I guess it depends. Not really a super big fan of this one. And technically that line doesn't actually work with emergency teleport because, you know, we can't link this off for anything except for like Almirage, which requires the monster to be normal summon specifically, so that doesn't work. Well then. Yeah. Pretty awkward. As an extender though, I guess it would be decent, at least. In a pinch, I guess we could do Rising Scale to summon Sharakusai and then just pass. And then we can make Amazing Dragon on the second turn, I guess. So I believe the combos that you would do with Rising Scale, they require Amazing Dragon. So this takes an additional 1, 2, 3 extra deck slots if we're running like Almirage as well with the Jam Fever. Not really sure if I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, not feeling great about this already. If you start with Ogre Dance, I guess it's a little bit better with you having the ability to banish the Ogre Dance, so we can go like Ogre Dance, add Xiamen, and then Xiamen adds Rising Scale, banish the Ogre Dance. You have that option, but I mean, like, even if this card didn't exist, all of this was just one card combo stuff anyways. So what was this allow us to do again? Let me think. So if we summon the Amazing Dragon and then summon a guy back, we can then convert the Amazing Dragon into a Punk Jam Fever. But if I recall correctly, this is something like the 6th summon, right? Isn't it? Well, we'll check real quick, I guess. So let's go normal summon. Well, actually, it would be start with Ogre Dance, normal summon Xiamen, Xiamen adds Rising Scale, banish. Ogre Dance, Rising Scale, special summon. This will special summon our Sharakusai, I believe. And then we go Rising Scale plus Xiamen to make the Amazing Dragon. And this is how many summons? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Amazing Dragon resolves to summon a guy back. And then we make Jam Fever. And the reason we do this is to have enough bodies to go into Rising card. And then also have Jam Fever. Problem. This means that this is the 6th summon then. That this has to be the 6th summon with the sequence and how it works. Yeah. That's terrible. So yeah, you still get nipped in this line. Like, okay. And if we were to go a little bit different, can we summon an 8 from out of thin air here? No. And we do want to resolve Rising Carp effect. And I believe if we do Rising Carp and then we summon the other, well, the other guy, the other Synchro, Jam Dragon Drive, this is like 6th summon or 5th summon or something. So we just get nibbed here, but again. Yeah, so in general, so far, I'm not feeling good about these prospects. Interestingly enough, though, if we were to be playing that one card, I don't remember the name right now, but a card that allows you to essentially cheat out an extra deck monster, Punk Jam Fever, we might be able to use this as a target, who knows, in some context. But we can use like maybe one of these guys as a target, like any of these 3 would work. Banish our opponent's monster, and then we can go Jam Fever on top of it, I guess. So I don't even remember the name of the card, but essentially, if your opponent controls a card, you can special summon a monster from either your deck or extra deck that matches some parameters, kind of like Small World. And then you can banish either both cards or one of the cards. I believe it was banished either face down or face up. I don't remember. I think it was face down. Yeah, it doesn't work on tokens, so it must be face down. And then you can make Jam Fever to insulate your plays a little bit. So that would be a massive play if you also had like a level 3 Psychic in the graveyard for this effect, which is just, you know, if it comes up, it comes up, you know? So yeah, pretty interesting in this regard. But in terms of overall, like what this has done for the deck, Rising Scale and Jam Fever, yeah, surprisingly, like as support, like the cards that do things, but they're not like that additive or synergistic to the other cards. that they would be making a significant change to what the deck already does, to the point where, yeah, well, we can just cut these cards from the deck and just play it as per usual, and it would not be that big of a difference, surprisingly enough. Wow. Yeah, that doesn't make me like super happy or anything, but yeah, the support not really crazy. Apparently, I do know there is like some other thing that could be getting released that's just useful in general for Punk that hasn't been released yet. So maybe that'll make a little bit more of a difference. But yeah, you know what? Probably not, honestly. So yeah, my hopes are not up. And they are constantly being dashed. Like, oh, I remember what the other deck was. It was Centurion. The Centurion support makes like barely any difference to what the deck already does. Yeah, you are drawing cards. I mean, you were already able to kind of draw cards if you really want to, but yeah, you're also drawing cards now, I suppose. Just a little bit more with Atri potentially. If you really want, you would technically go up to like draw 4, which is something. But all right. Continuing on, let's see. If we were to splash this, I think this helps like non-punk decks out more than it actually helps punk, honestly. Just oddly enough. If we go Rising Card or Amazing Dragon, I guess we could look for ways to have Jam Fever with 2 materials, and that's pretty lit because then we get the draw and we get a card in the graveyard, and they're in general good discards. Like best one off the top of my head, probably just Orcus Harpor, just 1 card combo off of just being put in the graveyard. That's pretty solid card to discard in general. And then you would have all your punk stuff. I guess like my Orcus Punk deck would be a little bit better, I suppose. That's something. But I think I made that card like wild, and I threw in like World Legacy cards or something. But all right. Not really, just not really a game changer, not really a life changer. More like just additional options you can throw in for fun, and you know, it's not as bad as some other support because you're not just cramming in cards that don't do much to your overall consistency and just lowering your consistency for higher ceiling, like that kind of support. I honestly just hate it. Like Altergeist, for example, we have like higher ceiling in Altergeist, but it's like your consistency is still terrible, so you don't really have a good way to get into all of your stuff just in general, and you have a bunch of like Garnets, which is terrible just in general. Yeah. So if I were to rate the support, it'd be like a solid 5 or 6 out of 10, probably. Like, but what is this even helping us play around? So if we get ashed, we're not going to be able to negate ash with Jam Fever, like for the most part, right? I guess we can prevent ourselves from being ashed on like Rising Carp. It doesn't help with like Imperm on Rising Carp necessarily, but yeah, it's for sure something. I guess it helps with Ash on specifically this card, but if, you know, we take this into account, like we just normal summon Xiamen, add Foxy Tune gets ashed, then, you know, not really much was done there. And actually, the lines that you would need to be able to do to get this out before Rising Carp, that's not like every hand. So you're running a Garnet for like a very specific hand, essentially. So now that I think about it, if you don't open like Ogre Dance and then start with Xiamen, I don't see how you're getting to Rising Scale to insulate like the Rising Carp here. So yeah, this isn't even searchable, right? Aside from with Xiamen. So yeah, that's just kind of terrible in that regard as well. So, not really a good impression, I guess. So it can sometimes insulate your Shark, or not Shark Kusai, your Rising Carp against like Ash Blossom, I suppose. That's what expectation here is, I guess. And yeah, that's about it. Aside from that, like other decks, if you were to E-Telly, I think like it wouldn't be this card. I don't think you would even want to play Rising Scale, but yeah, Jam Fever. We could use Jam Fever, right? To kind of insulate our plays from like interrupts in general. And they're like okay discards in like some decks. Like if we were playing Memento Punk, I guess a lot of the Memento monsters you can just drop, and drawing into random cards not that bad. Not needing your normal summon necessarily, being able to go into Ancient Fairy Dragon to kind of like grab stuff. That's also potentially a thing we could do here, I guess. I think I'm somewhat a fan of that. Doesn't sound too bad. Yeah. So yeah, support. I mean, at least we got something. It's not the best thing in the world, but yeah. But we take what we can get, I suppose. Well, that well, let me think. Yeah, there was no real way to not make the deck broken because it's so generic. If we were able to just, for example, make Jam Fever on top of any punk, well, yeah, everyone would just be playing punk in their main deck. Just why wouldn't you, right? Yeah. Not really happy about this, but I mean, we have E-Telly at 3, you know? E-Telly 3? 3 Foxy Tune? Can you imagine if all of these guys just converted into, like, draw 1 plus Monster Negate? Yeah, that's not something that I'd like to see. Like, imagine, I don't know, like, Tearlament doing that. Like, full power Tearlament, just randomly getting to a draw card and then having, like, a Monster Negate just to insulate their plays with, just for example. Yeah, not really a fan of that idea, but yeah, it is what it is, I guess. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.